I was called English speaking to serve in the Texas San Antonio mission. And I had remembered being kind of bummed about that when I got my call. And I talked to my mom about it. I was like, Mom, Ben and Ethan both got called. My brothers, they both got called Spanish speaking. They don't speak any Spanish. And I didn't speak Spanish very well, but I understood very well. And I'd taken in middle school and high school and in college. And my grandma's from Mexico. I would talk to her as much as I could in Spanish. And I remember just being upset. And my mom said, well, sweetheart, maybe God wants you to be able to jump right in and be able to teach right away. Because my brother had left 8 months before I did. And we had, watched him kind of struggle with the learning curve, learning Spanish. And it was frustrating to him that he couldn't communicate with people very well. And so my mom comforted me by telling me, maybe the Lord wants you to just be able to teach right away. And I saw that to be true. Even though I wasn't necessarily comfortable teaching right away, I was able to express myself because this was the gospel that I'd known all my life in a language that I'd known all my life. So all I had to get over was the jitters and, understand the way to teach. And that was that. I wouldn't say I was an excellent teacher right away, but I felt more comfortable. I'd say much sooner than my brother probably did. Bless his heart. But so I lived in my first area. It was called New Hope. We lived with the Palm Valley branch sisters, and they were Spanish speakers. And there was one sister I lived with. Her name was Hermana Rodriguez. She was wonderful. She's from El Salvador. And she speaks Spanish more comfortably, although she speaks English wonderfully. She just prefers to speak Spanish. So I would speak Spanish with her as much as I could. I remember being in a meeting one day, and this other sister, her name's Sister Storms, she heard me speaking Spanish with Sister Rodriguez, and she said, Sister Montclair, are you Spanish called? And I was like, no, I'm English called. She said, how do you know Spanish? I was like, well, I'm Mexican and, grew up hearing it, blah, blah, blah. And she's like, oh, that's wonderful. So it was at that meeting that I picked up my first trainee. And so we drive home and I'm kind of practicing with her, role playing a little bit. We're about to go out. We get a call from my mission president. I was like, great, he's going to take her back. I already ruined her. And so I answered the phone and I was a little nervous. I was like, hello, this is Sister Montclair. And he goes, hi, this is President Slaughter. How are you? And I was like, I'm great. He was like, Sister Montclair, I hear you speak Spanish. And I was like, yeah, because it's not what I hadn't put that on my missionary application, and my parents had been like, why don't you put that on your application? I was like, the Lord knows what he's doing. If he wants me to go Spanish speaking, he'll send me Spanish speaking. I don't need to tell him. So my president asks me this and I just panicked. I was like, yeah. And he then starts speaking to me in Spanish. So I was forced to respond in Spanish. I didn't want to be rude. And after about a 2-minute conversation, he just pauses and goes, wow, Sister Montclair, all these hidden talents I didn't know about. I was like, yeah, totally. Well, the next transfer, I trained a different missionary. She was a Spanish speaker. The transfer after that, my companion was a Spanish speaker. And the transfer after that, I was sent to the border, which is a Spanish area. And so I remember answering the phone when the assistants called to give us our transfer information. And I had just been doubled in to the area that I was in. So me and my companion were both new to the area. And so we were expecting, we're both going to stay. They're just going to say, sisters, you're both staying. Have a great night. Well, so they call. And they say, sisters, how are you? I'm like, oh, good. How are you all? We're great. So we have your transfer information. Sister Montclair will do you first. Okay. Well, sister, you're going to the border. And I was all ready to be level-headed and calm because I was trying to practice being calm because it was pretty obnoxious before my mission and pretty loud. And I still am pretty loud. I'm working on it. But he said that, and I've been trying so hard not to let the assistants know I was a fruitcake because I was in their district too, and that just all went out the window. As soon as he said that, I was like, what? just really loud. My voice shot through about 8 octaves. And he was like, yeah, sister, so we're going to need you at the border van on Wednesday because it takes so long to get down there. They take us the day before everyone else meets their new companion. And I said, wait. Am I going to the English area? Because there was one English area. And he said, no, that's closed for sisters. You're going to speak Spanish. I was like, oh, okay. And I stayed there for 6 months. And it was Del Rio, Texas. And that is my absolute most favorite area. You really shouldn't have favorite areas. I love them all, but Del Rio was my favorite. There's something about that place. It's just the smallest, most middle of nowhere place, but I loved it with my whole heart. And that was the only Spanish area I ever served in. And truly, we didn't even speak that much Spanish. We were in the northern area of Del Rio, which is like the richer area of Del Rio. So we taught a lot in English, but we did speak Spanish with people all the time, even if we didn't teach Spanish all that much. I never did again serve in a Spanish area, but did still serve in a leadership capacity. And so I was able to assist other sisters with their Spanish, the ones who were newer, who needed more basic help, because that's probably all I was good for. But it was a really interesting experience. I remember asking my president about it later. He had said in a meeting we were in, there were so many. Okay, well, there was 8 missionaries in Eagle Pass, 8 sets of missionaries in Eagle Pass, and there were 8 missionaries in Eagle Pass and 6 in Del Rio. And there were only branches to be serving in and only 2 in each area. And so someone asked him, why are there so many missionaries in one place? And he said, because the Spanish called want an opportunity to speak Spanish. I remember sitting there thinking, then why am I here? And so I asked him in a personal interview, I said, President, if you want more Spanish speakers in this area, why am I here? And he said, because I needed you here. Your call isn't changed. I don't change people's calls. You're still English called. You're not Spanish called. But I have extended you an opportunity. It was an assignment to serve in a Spanish-speaking area. And, I still don't know all the reasons why I went there. And I'm sure he doesn't know all the reasons why I went there. But the Lord does. There were people down there who, for some reason or another, needed me in my broken Spanish. And I was thrilled to have the opportunity. I remember when I told my dad, he said, I always knew that my children would serve Spanish speaking.